Gourmet for $231 million. Tanya Hansen, CNBC Radio.
Overturned truck blocking the carpool lane, freeway construction slowing everything down. I travel for work. News like that used to ruin my whole day until I discovered Citrix GoToMeeting. With GoToMeeting, I can meet from anywhere using my computer, tablet, or smartphone. And with HD video, I simply turn on my webcam and it's like being in the same room, which means I can stay productive no matter how bad the traffic gets.
Visit GoToMeeting.com and start our free 30-day trial. That's GoToMeeting.com.
Do you want to learn how to mask your identity to browse inappropriate websites and stream media while at the office?
Well, we can't help you with that. But among the many IT problems we solve, Barracuda's web security solutions keep online activity clean and ensure internet bandwidth performance. Reclaim your network, like 150,000 other businesses already have. To learn more about preventing web-based threats, visit barracuda.com/web.
Market Wrap with Mo Ansari is your daily source for financial news and analysis. With over 30 years of trading experience, Mo shares his thoughts on the markets, answers your financial questions, and features guest experts from around the world covering a variety of investment topics. Visit marketwrapwithmo.com for more info about the show and listen to Market Wrap with Mo Ansari. Weekdays at 5 p.m. on KCAA 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
Is your radio station dull and boring like most corporate-owned stations on the dial? Then it's time to tune to KCAA 1050 AM. It will blow your mind and maybe expand it too. KCAA is your independently owned go-to station in the Inland Empire. It's a veritable cornucopia of crazy, an assemblage of awesome and cool, and it's a little weird too. KCAA pumps out more local and national radio each week than most major networks while offering CNBC business news headlines during the week and NBC sports news on weekends. KCAA is unique, interesting, quirky, and sometimes outlandishly crazy, which adds up to a high volume of awesome. And for you audiophiles, KCAA delivers FM sound quality to our transmitter, which is why KCAA is the best-sounding AM station on the dial. So make your day with KCAA and find us online at kcaaradio.com. KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind. It's time for the KCAA Community Calendar, brought to you exclusively by Learn for Life, a growing network of public charter schools. The clear mission of Learn for Life is to motivate and mentor students who have dropped out of school and provide them with the personalized education and technical training necessary to advance their lives.
Here's a look at the KCAA Community Calendar. I'm Di Rice. Cal State University San Bernardino students will host the 8th Annual Spring Classic Golf Tournament fundraiser this Saturday, June 13th. The tournament will be held at Morongo Golf Club at Tuckwood Canyon in Beaumont with a shotgun start at 1 p.m. All proceeds will benefit the CSUSB Sport and Entertainment Marketing Scholarship Fund. Each entry includes a golf cart, lunch, dinner, and special edition gifts. There will be contests as well as a silent auction. To register, visit www.csusbspringclassic.com. And that's a look at the community calendar on KCAA 1050 AM.
The KCAA Community Calendar is presented exclusively by Learn for Life, a growing network of public charter schools where students can complete their education on a part-time basis. To find a resource center nearest you, call 1-877-360-LEARN or visit Learn for Life online at learn4life.org. KCAA is your CNBC news affiliate. We're the station that gets down to business.
Welcome to Relationships 2.0. I'm Michelle Skeen. My special guest today is Kimber Simpkins. She is the author of Full: How I Learned to Satisfy My Insatiable Hunger and Feed My Soul. Welcome, Kimber.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'm honored to be here today.
Oh, it's great to have you. I would love to start with kind of your journey with the book. Because I know that originally you wrote this book, and I believe you self-published, and now New Harbinger bought your book and published your book. And just so, like, how far back this whole journey of writing your story began?
It started a little over 11 years ago for me, where I had just become a new yoga instructor. And I realized that I had some real issues around my body that were starting to become very clear to me because I had been anorexic when I was 15 years old, but I stopped actively starving myself after a year afterwards. But I was still mentally anorexic, but I kind of didn't fully realize it until I started teaching yoga. And so I had this long interlude of more than 15 years since I had anorexia of being mentally anorexic. And it wasn't until I was a yoga instructor and I walked into a yoga studio full of students and taught them a really wonderful class on how they should appreciate their bodies and how great their bodies were and how they should be kind to their bodies. And I was saying all the right things, and I meant every single word of it. But I literally couldn't leave the yoga studio without telling myself that I needed to go on a diet and saying terrible things to myself, like, how could anyone take you seriously as a yoga teacher? Look at your thighs. And it was in that moment that I really realized, I just couldn't stand to live like this any longer, that I knew what the right thing was. I knew how I should be treating myself. And my yoga and meditation practice had made it so clear that that was not what I was doing. And I really wanted to resolve that inconsistency.
Yeah, you tell that story in the book, and I can't remember if it happens at the same time that you've written an article for a yoga journal, or did that happen afterwards? And then the student of yours who also happened to be a psychologist who was familiar with eating disorders talked to you?
Yeah, that happened about a year after I started on the journey of, I started journaling how I was feeling about my body every day and how what I was eating affected whether I felt full or hungry. And about a year into that, I was asked to write a small article about my attempts to eat more mindfully, and that was published in Yogi Times. And then one of my students came up to me after class and said, I happen to be an eating disorders therapist, and I'd love to talk to you about the article that you wrote. And that was really helpful. It was a really great connection for me because she helped me sit down and answer the question of, was I really anorexic? Because I'd never been diagnosed.
Right.
But whenever anyone talked about anorexia or the symptoms of anorexia or what it was like to be anorexic, I always felt this real sense of yes, 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 I know exactly what that's like. And so it was great to sit down with her and get to kind of talk about what the symptoms of anorexia really were. But she also was helpful in pointing out to me, look, you don't have to put a label on the eating disorder. It's you can say you had an eating disorder, and that's good enough.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because, I'm a psychologist, but we all specialize in different things. And I didn't specialize in eating disorders. So reading your books and, other books, I was so grateful for that part in the book where she says what the diagnose or what the symptoms are, what the signs are. But I felt like a lot of it was given the way that you discuss your interactions with people, including, your boyfriend at Smith College, who you had sex with, that other people weren't saying things about your body, certainly nothing that was similar to what you were saying about your own body or the thoughts and feelings you had about your body, which made me think body dysmorphia.
I actually, Michelle, I still have body dysmorphia, to be completely honest.
And just body image issues, right?
Yeah, I definitely recovered from the anorexia or the eating disorder in so many ways. My relationship with food is really different. I don't diet. I don't worry about dieting. And my relationship to my body is also like so much better and just changed radically. But one thing that hasn't actually changed is when I look at myself in the mirror, I still see something different than other people see. And what I've learned is to try to see what's beautiful in what I'm seeing in the mirror, whether it's the same thing as what other people are seeing or not.
Right. Here's one of the things that's kind of come up for me with some of the well-known people in the media who are really huge female talents who tend to be on the heavier side of average weight, who start off being celebrated for the fact that they're not trying to fit into what our societal norms are. Like, you can be successful and you can be beautiful and you can be bigger. You don't have to be thin. And I'm thinking of Melissa McCarthy and Lena Dunham. It's Dunham, right? And that they start off and it's like, look at me. I'm big, I'm happy, I'm healthy. And then both of them actually then, after being interviewed multiple times saying, I'm happy with the way I am, this is the way I am, they end up going on programs to lose weight. And in fact, both of them, and now Melissa McCarthy is being celebrated for having lost weight, which is clearly healthier than where she was at. Lena's gotten into, a workout and fitness kind of program, according to the tabloids, kind of instigated by Taylor Swift, who said, if you're going to keep complaining about it, do something about it. So I'm wondering how much of this whole idea of let's just accept our bodies for the way they are, we need to just love ourselves the way we are and not hold ourselves to these standards, is even realistic.
I think that it's incredibly hard to do in our society. It is really difficult, and I think it's really good to validate that. It's an interesting question. Is it realistic? Is it realistic to love and accept our bodies the way they are? In our culture, the way it is now, maybe not. But also, is it realistic to expect women, 100% of women to fit in what only 5% of women have as a natural body type?
Yeah,
also,
no, it's crazy.
Not realistic.
It's
we're
crazy.
actually not really talking about reality very much here.
Right.
Is the truth, about it is.
Right.
The truth is that women can't live up to the unrealistic beauty standards. And also, women, honestly, in the context of being so deeply, relentlessly pressured to live up to these unrealistic beauty standards, it's unrealistic to expect every woman to be able to love and accept her body the way it is right now. That's also, not realistic. And I really feel like what's so important in a lot of ways is to sort of get upset about the fact that we're expected to hold ourselves up to this unrealistic expectation, and to really clear some space, some psychic, mental space of those pressures away from us, and start to redefine what is happiness and what we experience as well-being from inside ourselves instead of from what we look like. And it's not an easy thing to do because the pressures are so intense, but it is fundamentally crucial to our ultimate well-being and crucial to overcoming that gap between, feeling like we have to look one way but feeling like crap on the inside. Feeling like we have to live up to some standard of perfection on the outside, but really having this very deep, fundamental level of self-dissatisfaction on the inside.
It's one of the reasons, and I've had Karen Koenig on my show a number of times because she's written a number of books to do with emotions and food and emotions around food. I wouldn't even call them dieting books because she's not really there's no mention of food in it, except that she thinks that people, if you're really dealing with your emotions, that you hopefully get to this place where you're making healthy choices for your body, and you're not using food as a way to punish yourself or a way to cope. And she banishes scales for her clients as well. She doesn't believe in having that be the measure. And you talk about it in your book, which was so great, that this is, this either makes your day because you're down 2 pounds, or it gives you another reason to beat yourself up because you gained a pound. Or maybe you're even beating yourself up if you lost 2 pounds because, I can't remember what you said in the book about, when you were down 2 pounds, that was just another reason to kind of give yourself a hard time even.
Yeah, I was afraid that if I took too much pleasure in having lost weight, that I would eat more during the day.
Right. Yeah, you might relax.
Right.
So, yeah. And so I think that very much tied into, I think, a lot of the messages in your book. And I think it's a healthier way to get a message out there to women. I'm sure that there are men who also feel like there's pressure. So I don't want this just to be confined to, to women. But now there's this funny thing. Have you read about the dad bod?
Yeah, I have.
Oh my gosh.
A little bit.
Yeah. I mean, there's just a lot of pressure on, I think, everyone about body, and no wonder it has this spiking at an all-time high of being overweight, and, percentages of overweight and obese people in our country and the world, right? It's like, it's so easy to just say, never mind, I can't live up to this.
Well, so there's another thing that's, about the realistic thing. One thing that we kind of take as an assumption in our culture is that it's realistic to think that people can diet themselves into healthiness and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that there isn't actually any research that backs up that assumption. There isn't research that shows that dieting helps people live longer. And I know this is kind of mind-blowing in a way, because we assume that this is true. We really believe this is true, and people will go to the mat, over whether or not this is true. But the truth is there's not good evidence about that. In fact, the evidence that we have shows that people who are in the overweight category on the BMI scale actually live longer than people who are normal weight. And people who are obese on the BMI scale only have a very small percentage greater mortality than people in the normal category. And so this whole, in a lot of ways, it's really good to question the assumptions that we have about the so-called obesity epidemic, because
Sure.
a lot of that is driven by the diet and pharmaceutical industry. And a lot of the studies that back up the reasons why obesity is a problem are also funded by the diet and pharmaceutical industry. So it's really good to put on our skeptic glasses when we're looking at these claims.
Yeah. So that explains the connection between, say, extra weight and longevity. But longevity and happiness aren't necessarily related. And I think that one of the things that I guess we can look at is just how people use food. And, I love your part in the book where, you give your partner, Chris, this big plate of food, and she says, I don't need that much, I think the idea that because we have access to so much, or not everyone, but some of us do, that we need to consume as much as we can because there's so much available. We're going to have to take a short break. And when we come back, let's talk about that and a lot more that you talk about in your book. You're listening to Relationships 2.0. My special guest is Kimber Simpkins. I will untie my tongue during the break. We're discussing her book, Full, How I Learned to Satisfy My Insatiable Hunger and Feed My Soul, something we all need to do. Stay tuned. We'll chat more after the break. Hi, I'm Michelle Skeen, psychologist, author, and host of Relationships 2.0. On my radio show, I interview guests who present their unique perspectives and expertise on topics that cover all aspects of relationship. If you want to improve your relationship, and let's face it, we all have room for improvement, tune in to Relationships 2.0 with Dr. Michelle Skeen. If you miss my show or you're interested in listening to past podcasts, you can go to my website, www.michelleskeen.com. Again, www.michelleskeen.com. Tune in and improve your relationships.
Hey, what's up? Thinking about you. XOXOXO. Want to snuggle. ... JK. Hit me back. You getting these texts? ? We should hang later. I miss you. Holla at ya, boy. Holla back. Holla back. Holla back. Are you at home? Where are you? What are you doing? OMG. You are making me mad. Are you with your ex? You better text me back. I'm waiting outside your house.
Relentless, aggressive texting is like sending an angry robot to deliver your message. When does the robot become dangerous? Let us know at that'snotcool.com.
That'snotcool.com.
Brought to you by the Ad Council.
When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, both of my daughters were pregnant, and everything I was looking forward to turned into everything I was going to miss. First words, first steps. Today, those babies are 3. I'm with them all the time. I don't know what's next, but I know I'm here today.
A Susan G. Komen grant helped pay for Allanthea surgery, and today she's caring for her grandchildren. Help save lives. Visit IamSusanGKomen.org. A public service message from Susan G. Komen.
Welcome back to Relationships 2.0. I'm chatting with Kimber Simpkins, author of Full. Welcome back, Kimber.
Thank you so much.
So it was interesting reading your book. You know, as we went to break, I was talking about this abundance of food, and I guess, you know, I could add like specifically a lot of big food and junk food. Your travels when you were younger were very interesting in terms of your relationship with food and other cultures.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that's wonderful about other cultures, and I think being just taken, you know, outside of your own personal family and like your individual food culture, is that I got to see how other people relate to food, and how other cultures relate to food in a way that's much more social, and that my family, because my parents were so busy, was very much about like, let's get our food fast and let's, you know, make it quickly and eat it quickly and get it out of the way and move on to the next thing. And in other cultures, I saw that like the preparation was really important and done really carefully, and the ingredients selected really carefully. And it's partly it was luck too, because I'm sure that there are, you know, homes in the particular cultures that I was in that were more like mine. But I was lucky in that the places where I got to stay and sort of become part of the family, like in France, for example, they had a really sweet food culture that was very much about being together as a family, and really taking lots of time and enjoying the food and having like different wine with different courses, and so the whole idea of like dieting didn't exist in the French family culture that I was in at all. And while that idea was a very strong one in my own family about like being careful about what you eat and only eating things that were good, and that was really a great juxtaposition for me and really helped. And this is one of the things that I feel super strongly about is to kind of take eating out of the purview of mind, and like it's mind's job to decide what's good for my body to eat, and instead start to trust the body's choices about what tastes good and feels good and how much and when. And that's a huge thing, because for so many of us, part of our food culture here in the United States is taking what outside experts say about our bodies and telling us what's good for us, and then imposing that on our body without actually checking in with our body about whether or not that feels good.
Right.
And that,
you mean like when after you'd given birth to your son and you just really, really wanted milk?
yeah, that really deep down craving for milk was really intense for me, and I felt so much better in responding to it instead of trying to push it away or pretend that it wasn't there.
Right.
That actually responding to it, I felt very, very satisfied, and it actually helped me. My nursing, went just fine, and I found that drinking lots of milk while I was nursing was actually very helpful for my own breast milk production. And it also, so I think outside experts are wonderful. I'm a big fan of outside experts, but I think that what they are is information that you then get to test out on your body and see what your body, who is the real expert, thinks of, right, this particular, advice. And that really shifts it to, instead of like thinking of the, the outside world as having all the answers, to turning it back inside and trusting in the body's wisdom, in the body's responses, and even in the body's pleasure. And this is something really interesting, Michelle, that I haven't tested this out for sure. I don't, there's no research on this to like back this up, but I have a theory, I have a hypothesis that nobody enjoys the 20th cookie. That if you really trust your pleasure and whether or not your body is actually physically still enjoying whatever it is that you're eating, you would never get to the 20th cookie, because the 20th cookie never tastes anywhere as good as the first one. In fact, by the time you get to like the third or fourth cookie, still not as good as the first cookie. And
Well, there actually is research on this. They have done a lot of research on it, and it happens as quickly as the second bite.
I definitely noticed that for myself.
Yeah, that the
attention,
pleasure diminishes. So yeah, there's some great research out there about that, and that people ignore that and continue to eat whatever the food is as if they're getting the same kind of satisfaction as the first bite when they're not.
Right. What happens is that we do get a lot of enjoyment often out of the first bite or the second bite, maybe, but then we shut off. Then we start meeting some other need. A need often, for me, my binge eating was often around just numbing, the sense of like needing to numb and to sort of self-comfort and self-soothe in a way that was very, that felt good in the moment, because I wasn't having to feel the underlying feelings that I was trying to suppress. But afterwards then, like the self-disgust was so intense that it really just wasn't worth it, and just made me feel so much worse about myself than I had before I started.
Right. Yeah, that idea of the coping behavior actually adds to the pain that you're trying to eliminate with the unhelpful coping behavior. Yeah, it's a self-defeating cycle for sure. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, it seemed like there wasn't a lot of mention of your sister. And I felt like, and maybe that was purposeful. A lot of people don't want to be in books, but especially memoirs. But it sounded like when you had that year of anorexia, that no one noticed. And I could see maybe parents don't notice, and it sounds like you were kind of camouflaging yourself. But what about your sister? Didn't she notice?
My sister was a senior in high school when I was a sophomore.
Okay.
And so she was very much consumed in her own world of, planning on going away for college and finishing up, all of her high school requirements. And so really involved in kind of her own world. But also because the pressures that both of us were under to lose weight, to look a certain way, what my sister and I have talked about, there was even though she noticed, there was a little bit of like, how is she doing this? Like almost a little bit of like envy or just like curiosity about how it, like what is working for her,
right?
And we weren't very close at that particular age, but it was almost like a little rivalry thing instead of concern.
Okay. Yeah, because usually girls and women notice other girls and women's weight,
Yeah.
a lot more than guys do. And then another thing that I was wondering about was when you had, so was the boyfriend at Smith your first boyfriend?
He wasn't actually my first boyfriend.
Okay. I was wondering how your feelings about your body changed when you were getting positive reinforcement and this is when you were younger, when you had boyfriends and you were sleeping with guys, and the guy you talk about at Smith College, he liked your body, if that made you feel any differently, or if that just didn't matter.
This is a really interesting question, Michelle. Nobody's ever asked me this particular question before. Honestly, I think a little bit of what I was doing at that point was I was dissociating around sex, around at least like really almost consciously making an effort to not let myself feel the intense shame that I felt around my body in that situation. And so kind of checking out and really focusing on my partner's body instead of my body, and trying to like really ignore my inner critic about like, oh my God, he must think you're so, blah, 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 blah. And really just consciously trying to like shut that down, not think about my body too much to a degree, not feel my body too much. And really try to focus on just being more in the moment, which is an interesting, was an interesting coping mechanism for myself, which allowed me to actually have sex, but not necessarily as pleasurably as one might like.
Right. Yeah, which led to that interesting part in the book where it seemed like everything had gone fine, and then he asked you if you were a lesbian.
Yeah, that was a funny moment, and I still quite don't know, what he was responding to that made him ask that particular question. It's still a little bit mystifying to me, except for the fact that, of course, he turned out to be right.
That's so funny. So that mystery's left hanging. Like, you have no idea why. Did you hear from him after the book came out?
No, I have not heard from him. He was someone who was doing like a lot of world traveling, and who's a little bit like, he was like an activist and a little bit of like a hippie activist type. He might not even be on the internet.
Right. He might be unplugged somewhere. Lucky him. Right. Because otherwise we could ask, right? Wouldn't that be great if he phoned in right now and I said, Kimber, we're going to get to the bottom of this now. What did he know?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, you and Chris are happy about that, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm very, very happily married now. Yeah, my sweetheart and I have celebrated our 20th anniversary this year. So.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyway, so what you're saying is that even getting that kind of adoration from someone, whether it's a male or a female, whoever your sexual partner is, actually didn't shift for you at all your evaluation of your body and how you felt about it. That didn't have any power.
So this is a really interesting thing to explore, Michelle, because I can tell you that I never, ever had a male sexual partner who adored my body. I actually found that male adoration was very sparsely meted out to me.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think I had one male partner who was very affectionate towards me around my body. And other than Chris, another female partner who was also very affectionate with me around my body. But all the other men and even women who I slept with, who I've been naked, in
right.
that context with, I actually found that that there was not a proliferation of adoration directed towards my body. And that's an interesting thing. I don't know how common or not that is, but I actually think that might be part of our general culture, this sense of like not wanting women to feel too secure about their bodies. And so if you find like a partner who's like super adoring of your body, that's a really awesome thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's something to like really treasure and enjoy and appreciate. And I definitely found that in Chris, and I appreciate it so much. And I found that to be incredibly healing for me.
Yeah. So it was once you found someone who you trusted, you loved, and you had that kind of unconditional adoration for your body.
Yeah, that was extremely helpful to have that, to not have to have an embodiment of my inner critic in my relationship, to not have to work with that or deal with that, was extremely helpful. But the truth is we had been together for almost 10 years, and with her total adoration of my body before I even started doing internal work for me to start to see myself the way she saw me.
Mm-hmm. So she would say something and you'd still wince, or in your head you would be, challenging what she was saying with your own remarks about your view of your body or how you felt, right?
Yeah. I mean, whenever I got compliments about my body, even from her, I just felt this real sense of like disbelief of like, I don't know what you could possibly be seeing that would make you say that, but it's not me. and
I think it's really difficult for people to sit with compliments and to take them in. And if you ask people, oh, do you must get you ask someone, oh, you must get a lot of compliments about, let's just use some crazy example about how pretty your eyes are, and the person responds, yeah, not that much. But if they were keeping a journal, you would see that they got them a lot, but they just don't take them in. Oftentimes we're just so busy, with our own inner critic, or thinking, oh, yeah, well, my eyes may be great, but this other thing's wrong with me, that it's easy to, not let that impact us in a positive way. And that's unfortunate.
It's true. I love what, Rick Hansen, the Buddhist brain author, he says that we're Teflon for good experiences and Velcro for bad ones.
Velcro for bad, yeah.
And it's true. Like I always I always tell my Love Your Body workshop students that it's kind of like when a compliment is coming towards us, we're suddenly like Neo and Matrix, where we can like bend over backwards, and even though the compliment is headed straight towards us, like we just like bend over backwards and let it just fly over us, like that compliment couldn't possibly have been meant for me. But when there's like a negative thing, when somebody like has some like critique or criticism, suddenly we're like giant outfielders. And then we got like our big glove, and we're like running for it. We're going to like catch that criticism and like bring it right into our chest like it was totally meant for us.
Yeah, we're expecting it, right?
crazy.
We're going to take another short break. You're listening to Relationships 2.0. My special guest, Kimber Simpkins. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
There are kids in this country who didn't have a parent at their baseball games or recitals because their parents were serving in faraway places. But now they're coming home, and Wounded Warrior Project assists them through the Warriors to Work program.
My mom used to be a tank programmer. Now she works with computers. I'm really glad she's home because I can't eat my dad's marshmallow macaroni anymore.
To support the Warriors to Work program, contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Do you tend to overreact and let your emotions rule your interactions with others? Do you become defensive or find it difficult to see things from another's point of view? Hi, I'm Michelle Skeen. You're not alone. Despite the fact that we all have to deal with people in our daily lives, many of us have difficulties with interpersonal relationships. My suggestion? Pick up a copy of the Interpersonal Problems Workbook. This book combines powerful evidence-based techniques for strengthening relationships in all areas of your life, whether it's at home or work, with a significant other, a parent, or your child. To find out more about the Interpersonal Problems Workbook, go to my website, www.michelleskeen.com. Again, www.michelleskeen.com. Pick up a copy and improve your relationships.
America's wounded warriors are coming home. After serving on foreign shores, these brave men and women are returning to their families and communities. Many have wounds you can see, and many have wounds you can't see, like post-traumatic stress disorder. Now that these warriors are back home, they are ready to enter the civilian workforce. To help, Wounded Warrior Project has developed the Warriors to Work program, a career counseling service that helps warriors translate their military experience to the civilian workplace. These extraordinary men and women bring proven world-class job skills and a unique perspective on teamwork to the job. And to ensure the right warrior finds the right job, Wounded Warrior Project works with employers to find just the right match. When you hire a wounded warrior, you hire an intelligent, talented, and committed new employee. Contact Wounded Warrior Project at findwwp.org. Welcome home the brave.
Can you hear me? Oh, welcome back to Relationships 2.0. Sorry, something happened with my mic. I'm chatting with Kimber Simpkins about her book, Full. Kimber, before we run out of time, can you tell everyone how to find you? You have a website.
Yeah, my website is kimberyoga.com. That's just KIMBRYOGA.com. And on the website, there's information about my online courses. I have a Love Your Body retreat coming up in August for women. That's really wonderful. And just some of the other things that I'm doing, including some information about the book. And I also have a second book coming out in January called 52 Ways to Love Your Body.
Is it hard to come up with 52 ways to love your body?
You know, I have been doing working with loving my body as a daily practice for many years now, and so I think I could probably come up with an infinite number of ways to
That's
love
great.
my body. So I feel like it's really just the beginning, and it's actually a really wonderful, creative impulse to look every day for ways to love our bodies, because the media messages about body negativity never sleep. And so we really have to give ourselves the antidote every single day.
Yeah. And there's just an awful lot of fat shaming out there, isn't there?
There is, and we internalize that into that question that's asked so often, that we ask ourselves. That question is like, am I fat? Do I look fat? Do these pants make me look fat? And that's just real internalized fat phobia about, not acknowledging the fact that beauty standards are completely inconsistent, over time and over generations, that fat is absolutely necessary for our body. It's what our brains are made of. And that, in fact, having a certain amount of fat on your body is absolutely necessary for your health, and that it's actually more important for your body to have the amount of fat it needs to be happy than it is for us to look a certain way in the mirror.
Do you still not use a scale?
I still do not use a scale, and in fact, I'm still in the habit of not looking at the scale when I go to the doctor's office. And in fact, I'm contemplating the possibility of just telling the doctor not to weigh me at all.
Yeah. Do you explain to me why that's important to you? Because I've certainly heard arguments on both sides, and I don't really have, I think everyone needs to do what works for them, but I'm just interested in hearing. I had a girlfriend when she was pregnant who decided that she just didn't want to be burdened with the information of how much weight she was gaining while she was pregnant. And so she would turn backwards, and she said, just tell me if it's something that's unhealthy for my baby. Obviously, I don't want to put my baby at risk, but otherwise, don't tell me my weight. And actually, I forgot to ask her last time I got together with her. She's since had the baby, if she is looking at the number now or if she's still ignoring it. But what is your reason for making that choice?
My reason is that I am very, very triggered by the scale. Looking at a number on the scale kind of reduces my whole experience to one of like, oh my God, I can't believe like that's what I weigh. I often compare it then to the number that's on my driver's license. Do I weigh, usually more, than what I weigh than what it says I weigh on my driver's license, and it kind of can often send me into this whole spiral of self-loathing that's completely unnecessary, because before I stepped on the scale, I felt fine, and I was perfectly happy, and I wasn't worried about my weight. And so to me, it's this unnecessary piece of information that's actually very negative to how I feel about myself.
Right. And how is that different than going shopping and seeing the size number on clothing?
Yeah, it's not necessarily different at all, but a lot of it has to do with the story that you tell yourself about it. And the thing about sizes, and I think most women know this, although some of us, do turn it into something to give ourselves a hard time about. But I have clothing in my closet, some of which is extra large and some of which is extra small. And some of it, is anywhere in between that. And so really, so much of clothing is not about what size the manufacturer thinks it is, but how it fits me. And so I'm really willing. I totally go in and I put on a pair of jeans, and if it doesn't fit me, it's the jeans' fault. It is not my body's fault. My body is fine. It's the manufacturer's responsibility to make jeans that look great on me that I want to buy.
They've mislabeled the jeans.
Right. Yeah.
They put the wrong size on it. Yeah. So it's just like what you're able to, or as you say, what story you're able to tell yourself, or what game you play that works for you, that doesn't make you feel bad about yourself. Although in some way I feel like those kind of games, like, we're not really tricking ourselves. We know the truth, like we know that particular manufacturer is sizes big, and if you go online and read the reviews, it'll say, I usually wear 27, and this jean I have to wear 25 because they make them so big, like that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like we can trick ourselves, but we're not real, but we know the truth, right? Like that's not really going to make you necessarily feel better about yourself. It's still, I feel like it still is another one of these hurdles that we have to face in our culture, that we're constantly, well, I mean, you saw this when you gave birth to your baby. From the time they're born and now even in utero, there are measurements that are being taken that are compared to norms on a scale that say you're above average, you're below average, you're off the charts, you're you weigh too much for your height, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just so difficult to avoid.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I do my best to avoid it. And I really make a really strong effort to not buy into that. And this is a big thing, because we are so it's so inculcated in us that we have to listen to these messages, and these messages actually have information for us. And so it's kind of a question of like, where's the trick, right? Maybe the trick isn't the story that I'm telling myself, but is the story that the world wants me to believe about myself, so that I think that there's something wrong with me, that I need to buy things to fix that. Maybe that's the trick.
Yeah,
and maybe
right.
What's real is that my body's actually fine the way it is, and that I can tell myself whatever story I need to in order to come back to that space of understanding that, and that my body I don't need to believe the story that my body has to be judged and compared by these ideals outside myself, and by what society tells me I'm supposed to look like, and tells me how I'm supposed to feel about what I look like.
Yeah. It's interesting. You're a yoga instructor, and I have a number of, female clients who, along with, friends and just, women I know, who will say, "Oh, I really want to start doing yoga, but I feel like I need to be thinner before I can do yoga." There's this kind of ideal that I think a lot of women have about what you need to look like in order to do yoga. And certainly, I live in San Francisco. There is an area in San Francisco where the yoga studios there, every girl has like the perfect yoga body. And when I say perfect yoga body, I mean, there's no muffin top on those, over those Lululemon pants, they just look like you would see women look in a yoga commercial. And one of my clients said, "Oh, it's so painful to go there. I just have to completely ignore the fact that I'm, the heaviest one there, that I'm the least attractive one in that studio." And I would imagine that, well, maybe your class is different because your approach is different, but that you must have people come to you who are like, I don't know if I'm in good enough shape to do this, or I don't know if I need to change something before I start this. Do you find that to be true? Do you understand what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's a really serious problem in yoga, that yoga is portrayed as something that's only done by thin, young, white women.
Yeah.
And that makes it really hard for a lot of different people, for people with larger size bodies, for people of color, for men, for people who are differently abled, for people who are older. Then a lot of groups feel excluded from yoga, when really yoga is meant to be enjoyed by human bodies in all of their different forms. And I just firmly believe that. And it breaks my heart that yoga is portrayed in this way that seems so exclusive. And I do try to make sure that people feel welcome in my classes. But honestly, even in my classes, because I'm sort of a medium-sized build person, that sometimes people don't always feel comfortable, even in my classes, even with my intentional trying to draw people in and let people know that I feel very strongly that yoga should be accessible to everyone.
Right.
That even then, the sort of culture around yoga and can have already fed people's discomfort so strongly before they even get in the door that I sometimes don't even get a chance to to welcome them and to help them feel comfortable, because they scan the room and they already feel like they don't belong. And that can be so hard and so painful. But what's wonderful is that there's a lot more awareness around this going on. There's some really great work going on with the Yoga and Body Image Coalition. Anna Guest-Jelly does curvy yoga and does curvy yoga trainings. There's Sally Pugh over here in Berkeley who does yoga for round bodies, and there's all kinds of things. So someone is really interested in
That's great.
In finding yoga that's appropriate for their non-stereotypical yoga body.
Right.
They can go actually online and find a lot of really great resources. Even on YouTube, you can find really wonderful classes that are intended for your body type. And I would say to students who want to try it out, go and just keep finding a class and finding a teacher where you feel welcome and where you feel comfortable and where you want to show up and where your body feels good and where your body feels like, it's accepted and safe. And that's the right yoga for you. And don't give up until you find it, because that is out
take
there
that
for you.
first step. Just get in the door, right, and see how that works out. Well, I would imagine that you make people feel really comfortable. The way that you share your journey, and I think a lot of women can relate to this, and I would suggest even men. Again, this isn't just women haven't cornered the market on negative body image, right? Or body dysmorphia, that it must feel like a gift for people to walk in and practice with you. And that's primarily what you're doing, right? You're a yoga instructor and coaching people who are struggling with what you've struggled with.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm a yoga instructor. I'm also a writer, and I also teach meditation, and I teach these Love Your Body workshops for women up to this point around using the tools and practices of yoga and meditation, especially to help heal our relationship with our body and our relationship with food, and just really fundamentally our relationship with ourselves and how we step into life.
Yeah, self-love, right?
Yeah.
Kimber, thank you so much for sharing this hour with me and sharing your story, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I really appreciate your really interesting, wonderful questions to answer and discuss. Thank you so much.
Sorry for surprising you with the one about the body image related to sex, but I know that can be a game changer for some people.
Yeah, definitely.
Take care and continued success with your book.
Thank you so much. You too.
You've been listening to Relationships 2.0. I'll be back next week with another great guest. In the meantime, be well.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA, Loma Linda, 1050 AM, the station that leaves no listener behind.
CNBC Radio. Not even good news about the job market could give Wall Street much of a lift today. Stocks end a quiet trading day lower, but not by much. The Dow down 2 points, the Nasdaq lower by 7. As for that jobs news, the Labor Department reporting that the number of advertised positions waiting to be filled hit 5.4 million in April. That's the most since record-keeping began back in the year 2000, and a good sign of more hiring to come this year. Oil shot higher. It's back above $60 a barrel. That's on forecast for an increase in crude production this year. General Electric is selling its Chicago-based private equity lending unit called Antares Capital for $12 billion to Canada's largest pension fund as it moves further away from the financial industry. And HSBC, Europe's biggest bank, announcing plans to slash 25,000 jobs at offices around the world. That bank wants to focus on fast-growing Asian business. I'm Tom Busby, CNBC.
Have you had trouble with online dating? This is eHarmony founder Dr. Neil Clark Warren. We've created a new solution, EH Plus. EH Plus combines the personal attention of a matchmaker with eHarmony's extensive pool of great singles. EH Plus gives you hand-selected matches and freedom from being online. Get started today. Call 855-930-LOVE. That's 855-930-LOVE.
Sharing. Since you were a kid, you've been told to share. Share your toys, the bathroom, share your feelings. There's shared baby pictures, cat videos, gym selfies, political views. When does the sharing stop? How about with your nachos? Reintroducing the $1.49 grilled stuffed nacho from Taco Bell. The first nachos designed not to share. It's seasoned beef, cheesy jalapeno sauce, nacho cheese sauce, and crunchy tortilla strips wrapped up and ready to go. Don't share one today for only $1.49. Live Más. At participating locations for a limited time. Prices may vary. Tax extra.
Good afternoon. It's a couple minutes after the hour. I'm Di Rice with the very latest in local news on KCAA 1050 AM. 16 months ago, Maria Estela Torres delivered tragic news to her friends. Her 8-month-old son, Joel, had died from high potassium. Friends made collection boxes and distributed them to businesses in hopes that people would contribute money to pay for final expenses. One box alone contained $1,000. Torres said she used the money to have Joel's body cremated before scattering the infant boy's ashes at sea. Torres' story remained unquestioned until employees at an Extra Space Storage in Bloomington cleared out a unit that Torres had rented and discovered the boy's body. Saturday, deputies arrested Torres, who's 31, on suspicion of murder. The boy had been dead for 16 months. And families from San Bernardino to Temecula will still be able to cool off at their neighborhood pools and water slides this summer, despite orders from the state to cut water use an average of 25%. Park districts and water park operators are trimming water use outside the pool to meet those goals. Among the changes the county is making, non-essential grass in some areas around pools will be allowed to die off and will be replaced by less thirsty materials. Backwashing of pool filters will be done on an as-needed basis rather than automatically, and pools will be covered when not in use to reduce evaporation. Inland Empire weather got a little bit of drizzle going on outside on and off today. Tomorrow, a partly cloudy sky, partly sunny, highs near 87. Overnight lows dropping to about 70. Right now, it's about 87 here in San Bernardino. That's the latest in local news on KCAA 1050 AM. This report has been brought to you by the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. The drought is serious, but everything you do to save water really adds up. Visit bewaterwise.com to learn how you can save water from the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California.
Is your radio station dull and boring like most corporate-owned stations on the dial? Then it's time to tune to KCAA 1050 AM. It will blow your mind and maybe expand it too. KCAA is your independently owned go-to station in the Inland Empire. It's a veritable cornucopia of crazy, an assemblage of awesome and cool, and it's a little weird too. KCAA pumps out more local and national radio each week than most major networks while offering CNBC business news headlines during the week and NBC sports news on weekends. KCAA